What is ambiguity aversion? How does it influence our decision making? How does the requirement of explaining our decisions influence ambiguity aversion? Let's first define terms. Ambiguity means that the probability of outcomes is unknown. When we cannot assign a numerical probability to an outcome, we tend to avoid that option. If our supervisor, Adam, is unpredictable and we don't know how he will react, we are likely to keep our mouth shut even when we know Adam's decision is wrong. Ambiguity is associated with the feeling of discomfort that we experience when we cannot predict the outcome. Now contrast this with the thrill of gambling. We know the odds might not be in our favor, but at least we know the odds, right? That's a risk. Risk means that the probability of an outcome is known. If the probability of winning a lottery is 1 in 10 million, then buying a lottery ticket is risky. Since an absolutely objective probability in our life is very rare, we make ambiguous decisions more often than risky decisions. Our tendency to shy away from situations where outcomes are unknown is called ambiguity aversion. We tend to be averse to unknown situations even when the known probability is low and the unknown probability is high. This is why we say, better the devil we know than the devil we don't. Here is a thought experiment that explains ambiguity aversion. It's an experiment famously known as the Ellsberg paradox, named after economist Daniel Ellsberg, who just passed away last month in June 2023 at the age of 92 due to pancreatic cancer. Ellsberg was a doctoral student in economics at Harvard University when the thought experiment was conducted. In the Ellsberg paradox, you are presented with a jar filled with 90 balls. One ball will be drawn at random from the jar. There are 30 red balls, so the probability of a red ball is 1 in 3. The other 60 balls are either black or yellow. You don't know exactly how many black or yellow balls. Any proportion is possible. You have 2 choices. Option 1, you earn $100 if you draw a red ball, or option B, you earn $100 if you draw a black ball. Which one would you choose? In option A, the probability of earning $100 is known, 33.3%. In option B, the probability is unknown because you don't know the proportion of black balls in the jar. To select from the 2 options, you are making a choice between an outcome with a known probability, which is option A, and an outcome with an unknown probability, which is option B. If you choose option A, you are like most people who are averse to ambiguity and prefer certainty. If you choose option B, there may be 59 black balls in the jar, so the probability of earning $100 is very close to 66.7%. Next, we spice things up a little bit. You still choose between earning $100 or nothing, but the options change. Option C, you earn $100 if you draw a red or yellow ball. Option D, you earn $100 if you draw a black or yellow ball. Which one is your choice now? In option C, the probability is unknown. We know that the probability of a red ball is 33.3%, but the probability of a red or yellow ball is unspecified, somewhere between 33.3% and 100%. By contrast, in option D, the probability is clearly at 66.6%. If you choose option D, you are like most people who find an option of a known probability is more attractive, even if the unknown probability in option C could have a higher chance of winning $100. The Ellsberg paradox, in its elegant simplicity, shows our tendency to choose known probabilities even when the unknown could offer a better outcome. This bias towards the devil we know is what we call ambiguity aversion. What's going on in our brain when we make those decisions? Why are we more inclined to opt for no risk over uncertainty? Why do we prefer walking on a wobbly bridge where we can see the cracks rather than one shrouded in dense fog? Our brain is like a super sophisticated control room buzzing with different processes when we make decisions. When we are facing a risky situation, like choosing to have a surgery of 83% success rate or medication with a 63% success rate, a specific area of our brain lights up like a Christmas tree. This region is the parietal cortex. It keeps track and performs calculations. Working along is the insula, an area anticipating potential losses. What happens when we deal with ambiguity, like choosing to adopt a new program with no proven success record for our organization? That's when the control room switches gear to the amygdala, the lateral orbital frontal cortex, and the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. Those areas are our brain's anxiety processors. They are activated, and we experience the highly aversive emotion of uncertainty. People with damage in those areas, particularly the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, seem to develop a sort of immunity to ambiguity. They don't experience the same apprehension the rest of us do in the face of uncertainty. Moreover, their brain's reward circuit, the dopaminergic system, tends to go on a silence mode when ambiguity steps in. This is why some people, such as pathological gamblers, are addicted to taking risks. Their dopaminergic system has intense activation when they calculate risk, leading them to crave the thrill. Ambiguity aversion is not exclusive to humans. Rhesus monkeys also prefer the comfort of certainty over ambiguity. This is because rhesus monkeys appear to share similar brain mechanisms of making decisions in ambiguous environment. Among all those decision-making scenarios, there is a common denominator, the lateral prefrontal cortex. This brain region is our emotional regulator, helping us manage our reactions to both risk and ambiguity. When disrupted by a lesion or stimulation, it steers us seek both higher risk and ambiguity. It's like we're willing to gamble against both high-risk scenarios and scenarios clouded with uncertainty. Antisocial behavior is characterized by a long-term pattern of breaking social, legal, and moral rules. This behavior often shows up as physical aggression, drug abuse, and criminal activities. Antisocial behavior is considered risky because there is always a chance of negative consequences. For example, if we behave aggressively or break the law, we could end up arrested or in jail. That's a punishment from an official authority like the government. Moreover, the person we've behaved poorly towards could decide to fight back, which is an informal reaction to our actions. Some researchers argue that people who are not scared of risk might be more likely to develop antisocial tendencies because they have impaired risk processing. A recent study reported that people diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder have lower sensitivity to ambiguity. This lower sensitivity to ambiguity was apparent among impulsive, aggressive individuals, but not among those highly characterized by psychopathy and rule-breaking. How does ambiguity aversion influence our social life? Wouldn't you agree that it's often more comfortable dealing with declared enemies than cloaked frenemies? With enemies, at least hostility is anticipated. But frenemies, they are an entirely different breed. They put on a mask of friendship one moment and stab you in the back the next. As unpredictability ramps up, so does your ambiguity aversion. The constant need to be on guard, especially in professional environments, can really ratchet up your stress levels. Speaking of stress, imagine having to justify a decision in front of your supervisors or the public. Does that amplify your ambiguity aversion? Your answer? Yes? No? If you are leaning towards yes, you are partially correct. The expectation to defend one's decision is a component of accountability, which can heighten your ambiguity aversion. When faced with uncertainty, having to defend your choice feels like mission impossible, especially when you have to justify an option with unknown outcomes. So you shy away from an option with an unknown probability. In fact, accountability can swing both ways. If you lack expertise in a particular subject, ambiguity aversion can hit you hard. But if you are an expert, your confidence can quell anxiety. As an expert, you have the ability to justify your decision even when the outcomes are uncertain by using factors other than probabilities, such as your moral values and past experiences. For example, your organization is hit by a ransomware attack. You are faced with two options: pay up to retrieve your lost data, some of which are confidential, or refuse to pay, leaving you uncertain about the cost and time it will take to recover your data. If you're the leader of this organization and you have to publicly defend your choice, would option B feel more comfortable? When faced with this situation, public organizations tend to lean towards the ambiguity of option B, refusing to pay ransom even when it's cheaper than recovering lost data. Take Atlanta City Hall in 2018, for example. Instead of paying a $52,000 ransom, they paid a whopping $2.6 million for recovery. Baltimore in 2019 followed suit, opting for an $18 million recovery process over a $70,000 ransom. The decision makers justified their choices not on probability, but on moral grounds of not enabling egregious behavior, viewing the hefty recovery costs as investments in cybersecurity. If you're an expert in decision domain, you don't need to use probabilities to justify your decision. Even though an absolutely objective probability in our life is very rare, remember, life is less about probabilities and more about the choices we make and how we justify them. This brings us to my book, Something Went Wrong: 52 Biases That Undermine Your Leadership Decision-Making. Consider this book your field guide to how the human mind works. Each bias presented in the book illuminates our understanding of human decision-making, especially within leadership contexts. Happy reading, and here is to leading with wisdom.